Okay, perfect. Good morning, everyone. We're going to wait for people to log in. John's going to do some moves.
You got the camera on us?
No, the camera's on me.
That's
When
what
it's
I
on you,
thought.
I'm just going to turn it
You
around.
had the camera on us.
No.
You're not going to turn around on us, are you?
If you're okay with it, I can do a
No,
quick sweep.
This is fine with me. In fact, you just keep it on you. You're fine.
Okay.
You're better looking than me. That's for damn sure.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Muzna from the American Stroke Foundation. Today we are live from our Lee Summit location. Does anyone want to say hi? No?
Hi.
Okay, hi. Can you hear them? Everyone just say hey.
Hey.
Hey, okay, hi. Susan is saying hi. Leslie is saying good morning. I'm sorry for the late start today. So today I want to welcome you to the American Stroke Foundation live Q&A. We're going to discuss the burnout from what can seem like the all-day, everyday work of recovery after a stroke. So I want to open up the chat with two questions to both survivors and caregivers. Does it feel like stroke recovery is still all day, every day? Or do you feel like you're living your life and having a stroke was just part of it? Does anyone have a comment on that? Is your life filled with stroke-related activities, home exercise programs, doctor's appointments, or do you feel like a stroke was something that happened, but you're still doing other things that you love?
I'm still doing other things, but it's still an everyday struggle.
It's still an everyday struggle. Okay. Same with you, Glenn?
My truck all
Did you used to work on your truck? Is that what you're saying? Okay. But not so much anymore? Okay. No? It's gone?
Yeah.
Okay. So my second question is, so if you have any thoughts on the stroke recovery process and if it's still dominating your day, please let me know in the chat so we can make this as interactive and useful as possible. For more information on what we discussed today or any of our wellness topics, please visit our website at americanstroke.org and use the links to access our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and blog. Our chat is open for questions and comments, so please let us know what you're thinking. If anyone here has any questions while I'm talking about this, please let me know. Today we're talking about the burnout from the job of getting better, which after a life-altering event like a stroke can seem like everything is stroke related, right?
Everything is such a struggle anymore.
Everything is what?
A struggle.
Everything is a struggle. Yeah. So let me see. So we have we have a lot of people on. Leslie, good morning. Leslie says, hey again. Paul, good morning. Rachel, good morning. Linda, good morning. Aaron says both. It was all day, but I made a choice to have normal stuff. I had to fight for that because some refused. So what she's talking about is some days is still all day, every day like a stroke, but she really had to advocate for herself to bring back the aspect of her old life for
I
balance.
just don't know how I'm gonna feel every day when I wake up.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm gonna be able to do what, there's some days I just can't hardly get out of bed.
Yeah.
I just wanna stay in bed.
Yeah. And how often do those days happen compared to the days where you feel
Maybe
good?
Once a month or so.
Once a month or so?
Yeah, I don't have too much with it, but sometimes if I've had a bad night, like my leg's been cramping or something, I don't wanna get up in the morning.
Yeah.
No, it just spoils my day.
Does anyone else have that experience that how you feel when you wake up dictates your whole day?
No, I want to get up in the morning. I got to get up and get started. I was always an early morning person anyway.
Yeah.
So I have to get out of bed. I
Yeah.
have to get out of bed and get started, you know. So, matter of fact, I can't stay in bed. I have to get up. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or maybe even earlier because I drove clear across town when I was working.
Yeah.
And I've been retired for several years. So now, the bad thing about it is, you know, I can't sleep. I flat can't sleep. So I've got to get up and get going. I'm usually up early listening to traffic reports and everything. Of course, I can't drive now, you know, so I've got to get up and get going. As a matter of fact, my daughter now brings me over here. So that's like, she comes up and picks me up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, I'm usually up at 5 o'clock waiting for her to pick me up at 9. You know, I'm waiting that long for her to pick me up. So, but as far as, you know, it being a struggle, yes, it is a struggle, you know, but the thing of it is, now anymore, I take so damn many pills, you know, which is a bunch of crap to me, you know. But I guess that it's either keeping me alive or killing me. I don't know which one it's doing. But I guess it is in fact keeping me alive. But I actually, and I think what, I thought at first it was blood pressure that actually made me have the stroke. And now it must have been AFib, because I have AFib too. So I tell everybody now, I think what's going to kill me actually is going to be my heart. So, because I've got this nice little Mickey Mouse now that tells me that I have AFib on a regular basis, you know, and a phone too, and it reminds me that it's a certain percentage of the time that I have AFib. So, but actually,
Wayne, can you tell me about that watch after we're done with this? Because I do want to learn about it, but I got to hop back on this.
yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's see. After a life-altering event such as a stroke, it can seem like getting better or helping someone get better is your new full-time job. This job requires something we call health work. Has anyone heard that phrase before, health work? You have? Okay. Yeah, so in the simplest terms, health work is work related to getting better that is recommended by those involved in your recovery. So it's recommended by professionals who are committed to helping you get better. But there is such a thing as too much health work, and that's what I want to talk about today. So individuals who experience mental or physical injuries may experience too much time doing health work to the detriment of other daily activities. So research shows that extensive health work involves tremendous effort, endurance, and organization, often leaving little energy or time for other types of activities, right? So if your day is full of doctor's appointments, if your day is full of home exercise programs, if your day is full of getting new equipment, everything related to your stroke, it leaves, you know, we only have a pot of energy we wake up with. So
Ever since I left Mid-America,
yeah.
I've had some professionals with physical therapy and things, but they've dropped me. I mean, they just kind of, they kind of pooped out on me. They don't want to work with me anymore. You say I'm not making enough progress, so they don't work with me. So then they say, well, we're not going to schedule another appointment. So then I'm out on my own.
Are you working on stuff on your own?
No, not really, because I don't have any guidance.
Okay.
And I'm really kind of the person that needs that one-on-one guidance.
Okay.
So I really need it, and I do certain things at home, but not like I should.
Okay. Have you made a list before to make a list of things you want guidance on so we can support you in that?
I can do that. I
Okay.
haven't done that.
Yeah, I think that's great. We talk a lot about making inventories. It's really easy for us to tell people what we don't like and what's not working for us. It's a lot harder to say what it is we actually need, right? We know when something is not meeting our needs, but if we stop and think about it, like what would be better, right? How could someone be better for us? How could a service be better for us? How can the Stroke Foundation support you best? So I encourage you guys to make a list so that we can use this time here to brainstorm and make sure the services are value added for you. Okay, I'm gonna go to some of the questions on the chat. Paul says, for me, it's learning new struggles that I have. Leslie says, it's been 14 years for my husband, and we live life with our new reality on a daily basis. His stroke mostly affected his short-term memory. Rochelle says, doctor visits had tapered off, but everything I do brings it to the forefront. Aaron says, sometimes friends and families made everything about recovery. Yeah, so sometimes a phrase that I've heard from stroke survivors or caregivers is killing them with kindness. So everyone wants to help you, especially right after your stroke and stuff, but sometimes you're still coming to terms with how your new life is gonna look like. And after, when you're trying to focus on new things, if people still make it all about your stroke when they see you, right? The visit is always like your friends visit and they say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What can I do for you? Then it brings the focus back to that being the only part of your life. Has anyone had that experience?
My husband does that to me quite a bit.
Your husband does that? Okay.
He tries really hard, but he's never had any training. So he really doesn't know what to do for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think that list will help with everyone being able to support you in a way that makes you feel supported. I use the analogy of like if you open a door for someone but they're not leaving the building, they don't see that as helpful, right? So same when you need help with something or you're helping someone after a stroke, you have to do it in a way that they perceive it as helpful. Otherwise, it just sets the stage for frustration. So, the lack of life balance, including spending most of your time on activities related to getting better, can have a negative impact on your health. This is in addition to the changes that are already there after your stroke. But the question is, how can working on getting better be too much of a good thing, right? It sounds counterintuitive. If I want to do everything possible to get better after my stroke, why is there a limit on when that becomes too much of a good thing? So I want to use the example of a workaholic or someone who spends all their time and energy at their job. Most of us would agree that someone who is very much a workaholic will have negative consequences in the other areas of their life. At a certain point, work will be all they have because that's the only area of their life they put time and effort into. Then you might ask yourself, what's the point of more money if you're too tired to use it, don't have anyone to share it with, or you don't have time to spend it?
I think that happened to me because I had 2 jobs at the time of my stroke.
You did?
And I was very stressed out with one of them.
Yeah.
And I think that contributed to my stroke. I never took time for me. I'd go home and I'd be typing on my cases until 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Then I'd get up the next morning and start all over again. And so it was hard.
Yeah. One of the stroke survivors I used to work with about 10 years ago always used to say, make time for your wellness or you're going to be forced to make time for your illness. And so that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of the mantra I try to keep track of when I put stuff up. Yeah. Spending all day, every day working on getting better can have the same impact as being a workaholic. If you don't nurture the rest of your life, you are also at risk of burnout. So how many of you find yourself tuning out during yet another doctor's appointment? Or has it gotten harder to feel motivated to do your home exercise program? Or do you think, what's the point of yet another round of OT, PT, or speech? These could all be signs of burnout related to the job of getting better. We need life balance for us to be at our healthiest. So my question to you is, what other activities are you doing besides health work? And how do these activities make you feel? Anyone?
Particularly, I like to play pool, so
Okay.
I still do that. I'm not nearly as good as I used to be,
Yeah.
but I enjoy it.
Good. Anyone else do an activity that's really important to them that has nothing to do with getting better after a stroke?
I paint.
You paint? That's great. Jan?
And puzzles.
Puzzles?
What,
Yeah.
Word puzzles,
yeah,
Puzzles are
word
awesome.
search,
Yeah.
and crossword puzzles.
no, it's,
I like word search.
Is it good for your vision and your brain?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. The cool thing is everything around us can be used for a therapeutic purpose. We just have to be a little outside of the box, right? You don't have to spend money on doing stuff that will get you better. So Erin says things that she does that are fun, that are not related to stroke recovery is dates with my husband. That's great. Connecting with people is important. So related, if you think in your head of all the things you do or don't do that are outside the area of stroke recovery, think of it when it comes to life balance. So tracking your activities and how they make you feel is helpful. You can rate your activities in 4 areas: pleasure, productivity, restoration, and connection. So pleasure refers to experiencing enjoyment versus displeasure. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much enjoyment does it give you versus 0? It doesn't give you enjoyment. Productivity refers to feeling a sense of accomplishment versus not. Restoration refers to feeling energy renewal versus energy drain. And connection refers to experiencing social connection versus social disconnection. Now, if you do an activity by yourself, if you are a person who enjoys doing things by yourself, it's the difference between solitude and isolation. Can anyone relate to that? That like you like, yeah, you like the time to yourself, but at a certain point, you're avoiding other people. So rating your activities on that scale can be important in terms of life balance. So if you list everything you do during the day and you divide it into categories of taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of your home, work, and everything else, and then rate all those activities, it'll give you a pretty good indicator of your life balance. So if you do that rating system and you realize that you're spending most of your time doing stuff that doesn't give you joy and stuff that doesn't make you feel accomplished, doesn't make sense to keep spending most of your day doing that at the expense of something else. So there's no right or wrong way to spend your day, right? We all have things, we all have our lives that we have to live. But what we're saying is that there's a way to design your life to maximize your stroke recovery that has nothing to do with just working on your stroke. It has to do with life balance and being happy. And they show, brain imaging shows that when you're doing something you love, it's just as important for neuroplasticity as being in a hospital during OT, PT, speech, or doing things that gets your brain active and your leg moving and your arm moving. Happiness itself and balance itself is healing. So that's the kind of the overarching message for today. So let's see. Okay, we talked about that. So every minute counts when you are logging your activities. So track everything from brushing your teeth to running an errand. Balance your life by designing it to highlight enjoyment, accomplishment, energy renewal, and connection. Life balance does as much for stroke recovery as health work does. And then when we talk about burnout, it doesn't matter if it's burnout related to a job or burnout related to having a stroke. Burnout is burnout. And the brain switches from, when you have burnout, even if it's related to getting better and working on your health, your brain switches to damage control. So at a certain point, another round of exercises won't be effective. At a certain point, another round of whatever will stop being effective because your brain has switched to damage control. And that means that growth no longer happens. So there is too much of a good thing. Just like if anyone was at the gym, we wouldn't say every day is leg day, right? People alternate for a reason because the science shows that you have to have that day in between for the muscle fibers to come back stronger. So same with stroke recovery. There's more is not necessarily better. Do what gives you the biggest benefit and then live your life. Then go back to doing what gives you the biggest benefit and live your life. So you have control to start designing your life for success. So this is a lot of information, I know. So I'm going to go back real quick and make sure I didn't miss any questions. Stephanie says, we're 2 months out from a stroke and learning these things. Paul says, I like playing disc golf, but find myself doing additional therapeutic activities. Miriam says, strokes can be very isolating, especially when we can't drive and we rely on other people. You don't want to be a burden to others. That's also the part of burnout, right? You can relate to that, not wanting to be a burden? Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a discussion with your caregiver or do you keep those feelings inside?
No. Charlie, good.
Mm-hmm.
His truck is myself is good, yeah.
Yeah. So you can have burnout both as a caregiver and a stroke survivor from having the stroke, right? And it's more than just like, I think we have, or at least I have this idea in my head of what burnout means. You hear it a lot, oh, I'm burned out, I'm burned out, I'm burned out. But what I think of it, like working with stroke survivors over the years, what I think of burnout, I think of like there's no amount of sleep that is enough. There's no amount of, rest that is good enough. You still feel depleted. Even though you're eating well, you're moving, you're sleeping, you're still not feeling restored. That means that's a sign of burnout. that means you need to do a major reset and an inventory. And again, it's not a blame situation. It's not like, oh, now I have to do this on top of it. It just means that awareness is the first step, and using each other as supports, and the American Stroke Foundation or whoever your community and village is, to talk about that stuff, right? Because we all experience, like, we all have this common human experience. So, you know, a stroke is what brought you guys together here, but I'm sure you guys have found lots of stuff in common that has nothing to do with a stroke, right? So this just talks about, like, understanding burnout as happening to everyone, not just someone who spends all day at quote unquote work, but after having a life altering event, burnout is relevant too. Rochelle says, I'm 46 and I'm tired of hearing how young I am. It makes me feel worse and more like isolating myself to avoid dealing with the reactions of others. Yeah. So we have a range of ages here, right? Some of us had a stroke or a brain injury younger, and some of us had it older. And I'm sure that's affected how doctors spoke to you and how family members react to you. It's like, oh, well, they were old, versus, oh, you're too young to have a stroke, and minimizing, you know, your experience. Can anyone relate to that?
I mean, a bit, because they're like, oh yeah, you're so young. I'm like, yeah, but a brain injury still happened.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Like, at my age, I know a guy who had one, he was 2.
Yes, children have strokes all the time. That was actually my doctoral project, is people who have sickle cell disease have strokes in the womb and in, you know, grade school and stuff. And so, but they're called silent strokes because they don't have changes in how their body works or how they speak. And so in school, teachers were saying, oh, this kid is just a bad kid. They don't know how to behave. But they were having silent strokes. So yeah, a stroke or changes in your brain. So as complicated as our brains are, it's amazing any of us work as well as we do. And, you know, a stroke can sometimes make you feel very angry at your brain. And then on the other side, you hear about neuroplasticity and that there's no cap on recovery. You'll always, as long as you're willing to participate in your life, recovery is always an option, like more getting closer to wherever it is you want to go. And I tell people those feelings are not mutually exclusive, right? You can have both feelings. You can have gratitude for everything that you got back after the stroke, and you can still be angry, you know, for having the stroke. It's important to acknowledge all your feelings. Erin had her stroke at 41, she was saying. Yeah. So just to quickly kind of summarize, I covered a lot of information today, and it can seem weird to think that there's too much of a good thing when it comes to working on getting better. So I want to use one more example. Does anyone know any pilots, or does anyone have pilot experience? Anyone? Okay. Oh, okay. So, when you think of a pilot flying a plane in their training, they're always trained to keep their eyes on the horizon, right? Does everyone? Yeah. Okay. Why is that? Anyone know?
I guess it will keep you relatively straight.
Yeah, it keeps you oriented. So even though the horizon isn't the goal, the horizon keeps you oriented. So they are taught to keep their eyes on the horizon, not on the ground where they are going to land, right? So even though the ground is the destination, if they look at the destination, they'll end up nosediving, crashing and burning, right? So the eyes on the horizon is to stay oriented and safe while they work on the bigger picture of landing where they're supposed to land. So same with stroke recovery. If you're laser focused on your stroke recovery, you're gonna crash and burn. You have to keep your eye on the life balance horizon, and then you'll land safely and where you want to. It's kind of the same analogy. I don't know if that made it any more clear, but this analogy came to me when I was working with my service members who were pilots, and when they're aiming for a target, you would think you aim for the target, but you'll end up in the ground. You have to keep your eyes on the horizon while you're looking for the target. So that's all I have. Let me see if we have any questions. Last call for questions and comments online. Do you guys have any questions? After you're done with this, I would, if you guys still have questions, I would love to, because you said, Wayne, that you were having trouble with sleep, right?
Oh, yeah.
We can talk about that. I spent a lot of time learning about that, so,
I can't sleep in, I guarantee you.
yeah.
Just don't happen.
Yeah. And sleep is one of those things. There's no, I mean, whether it comes to sleep or physical exercise, there's no one size fits all. And so, a big part of my job is making sure people feel comfortable with the fact that, you know, if something, a doctor recommended something and it's not working for you, that's okay. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or that you're not trying hard enough. Sometimes the information that is supposed to make us better doesn't work for us, and that's okay. So my job is to help people find the information that will be helpful for them, whether it's sleep, exercise, or diet, or stress.
Can you talk about movement?
Yeah, yep, as soon as
Curious, does it come back?
we will get into that discussion. Let me wrap up this, okay? So Aaron says my dog is a great therapist. Does anyone have pets that help them on the days that aren't so great? Yeah. Yep. Sometimes it's easier, right? They don't ask questions. They just want to be with you. No
Right.
expectations.
Right.
So, okay. Thank you everyone on Facebook. Next week's topic is going to be to be determined. So please check our Facebook page. And if you have any questions on this presentation or anything we've talked about before, please let us know on the comment form. And we will see you next week. Take care, everyone.